Een vanaandse bulletin. Duisende jongmannen meld hulle aan vir die Julie-inname van dienspligtiges.
Daar kom tye dat 'n keuse gemaak moet word tussen onaangename alternatiewe.
First is a illegal gathering. You must disintegrate.
Okay, so I am with Guillaume Rossouw, and we're going to be speaking about Housewife's Choice and whatever else he wants to speak about. Hello.
Right.
Right.
Okay, Housewife's Choice was about the third band that I was involved in. The first band, we went to Cape Town and Joburg. We bought some stuff from Magnet Music and traded it in as deposits at Bothner's around the corner, or the other way around, I can't remember. The guitarist's father was with a consulate in Swaziland for England, and he went back to England, and Graham came to South Africa illegally, and we had a drummer who ran away from Frelimo in Mozambique.
Jeez.
And he just had these little homemade Mozambican drums, and we started a band called Rock Spider and the Screaming Queens. We did a few gigs. Errol Dyers came to help us out for one gig at the Dove Cottage in Cape Town. We actually ran off to Cape Town. We stole some cars in Joburg and went to Cape Town to start a band. And yeah, Errol Dyers played with us a little bit, and then Eki Eckhart came and helped us out a little bit in the beginning. And yeah, shortly after that, I felt pregnant, and I realized that I was having a kid, so I came back to Joburg to meet my eldest son. And that's another long story. But
And you were at that stage you were evading the army.
yeah, I was on the run from the army, and so the one guy was an illegal immigrant from Maputo, and the other guy was an illegal immigrant from Swaziland, from England, and then there was me running from the army, and we had some other guys we were working with as well, all sorts of people coming and going, but that was the basis of the band. I didn't know anything about playing electric guitar. I came from learning about Woody Guthrie and starting on Bob Dylan and Donovan and shit like that. In fact, in 1969 in Alleville North, we went on a Christmas holiday because my mother's sister lived there. And I won a talent contest there, doing a Bob Dylan song and a Donovan song. And the times are changing, and I think Josie by Donovan. And I went out and bought myself a half jack of rum with my winnings and passed out there. Made an arsehole of myself. I wasn't really allowed to play guitar. I had to play piano accordion. I got lessons as a kid. Then I bought myself a 5-string banjo. But now my uncle there in Alleville North, he played the concertina. They called it a cassie. But he played everything in B flat. So when I had to jam with him, I had to play B flat on a banjo, and it was very difficult with a droning high G on the 5-string banjo. So yeah, I learned a lot doing that. But anyway, after Rock Spider and the Screaming Queens, I came back to Joburg. Graham managed to get back to England. Chico, the drummer, I don't know what happened to him. He probably got bust with drugs or something.
Do you still speak to Graham?
Graham is now in Cape Town. He spent his life working in a hospital and busking in England, and he's got some very good recordings, and he, with his retirement money, bought himself a house in Cape Town now, but I haven't seen him since. And he's not all that well physically. I've spoken to him on Facebook, and I sent him some referrals to where to buy Zoll and things like that.
Okay, very important.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I really decided that's all I can do is music. I had no education.
The clubs you ran venues and had a lot of bands.
Yeah, that was after the bands. I played in the then some people were styling me for punk when the Sex Pistols happened, and they passed me on to a play at the Space Theatre.
Oh, the Space Theatre, wow.
Yes, and then Steve Money contacted me after that and said he wants to form. In those days, people didn't want to call themselves punk, but I was a punk, but they wanted to form a new wave band. Steve Money contacted me, and we did some Yellow Level gigs and some Mowbray Town Hall and various halls that we booked and played, and Yellow Level anti-apartheid gigs that we did there because Stephen was at university.
That's at the nucleus of this whole alternative South African music scene, is the fact that you were all anti-National Party and none of you were racist.
No, we were never racist.
Exactly.
I now realize that even though I ran away from the army and I couldn't ever get a job where I paid tax or anything like that, and I couldn't use my real name, I used the name Gil Gap.
That's a nice name.
Because I had no front teeth. I still don't have.
You see? Okay.
There was Safari Suits, but I found Safari Suits called themselves New Wave, and I wanted to go more punk. And also I felt I was the only one joining the Safari Suits who already had songs written, but my songs weren't punky, they were blues-based.
Again, that's a name I've heard, Safari Suits. I've never heard the music, but I've heard that name.
Well, what happened is Safari Suits got a recording contract with, I think it was Mountain Records, to do a compilation album and to do 2 songs in there. And Steve wrote a song called South African in Paris. And I thought, geez, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to sing this song. I don't even want to hear it. And I left the band.
Okay.
And formed Housewife's Choice. And the guys from Housewife's Choice, except John Minty, the drummer, Michael Cramps, the guitarist, he's now Michael Smuts. Michael Cramps was 16 years old or something, and Simon, the bassist, they were at school together. He was about 18.
Was this in the 70s?
Yeah, it was 70s. That's all 70s. Then Housewife's Choice, we were a hard driving punk band, but as well was like all things. It had a time, and we all had ego problems and problems with each other and this and that and the other. And Housewife's Choice split into 2, and Michael and myself formed the Rudimentals, not the Rudimentals that is around now. We were the Rudimentals. 2 words.
Okay, I like that.
And the other half of the band formed the Zeros. But they were very into doing Ramones covers, and I wanted to do more originals.
Is that when you wrote Green Pawpaw?
I wrote Green Pawpaws for Housewife's Choice, Green Pawpaws. It was a protest song about the army, but being on the run from the army, I didn't really explain what the song was about, but the words went something like, hang your semi-automatic on a tree, a border pawpaw is somewhere to be. Find somewhere quiet, somewhere to hide. Make a green pawpaw your disposable bride.
I love
Green
that.
pawpaws don't mess around. Green pawpaws don't mess around. I can't remember the chorus unless I'm singing it and playing the guitar. And then it says, give her all of your loving, all of your soul. All you've got to do is cuddle it all.
I love that.
And but I never really sang the words that clearly, and the guys in the band didn't really know what the song was about. Warwick Sony from Kalahari Surfers and Shifty and that, he was the bassist for Rudimentals.
Okay.
And he years later asked me, was this a song about having fun in the army? Because I didn't really talk about being on the run from the army, because...
No, because you never know who's going to turn you in.
Yeah, I was paranoid.
Of course.
I had no contact with my parents.
No, you were careful.
I made a deal with my parents when my second son was born. I said, if you want to meet your grandchildren, I was the third son and the first one to have children because I had accidents very young. And then I made this deal that they'd stop giving the army my address if I had contact with them. And then I took the kids there and they asked Ben if he could speak, my younger son, if he could speak some Afrikaans. And he started reciting Opa and Oma sit op
harde poep.
So I actually wrote a song about that and I still do it. And it's been evolving and developing and Opa and Oma are doing quite weird things these days.
I like it.
Both my parents are dead now.
Oma vra wat my keer, Opa sê my gat is seer.
My maag is seer.
My maag is seer.
Anyway, that doesn't matter. But anyway, in the end, Opa and Oma pomp op die stoep. And then there's a fanny fart and some things like that. But anyway, and the song has been evolving since, and I do it with Dumdakers now still because it's actually quite funny. And my music's seriously not serious, I write one-liners and
I like the music clips you sent me. I like them. I like your sound.
Well, my sound, I never had my own record player or record collection or tape deck or anything like that. I only heard music at other people's houses, at Joel's and in other people's cars. And if somebody gave me a mixtape and I happened to be driving a car with a tape deck, I could play that. But I heard songs at Joel's and things. So I don't have references in my music. Most of my songs, especially the ones when I wrote when I was young, because I never had music lessons other than a few months of piano accordion, which helped a lot to understand some of the music. But most of my songs were written as an exercise to understand playing the guitar. So that's the reference in my song. So now when I listen to old music, I might not know who it is, but I can predict the guitar piece and usually the bass as well. And it's there. So all that music, because it's not as if I never heard music. I just didn't care who it was. There were people that I singled out, like Frank Zappa, Jimi Hendrix, and J.J. Cale, because J.J. Cale, to me, was minimalist, so you could copy his stuff, but once you start playing it, you realize how difficult it is to do that minimalist stuff, to realize how much there is in it. But anyway, that being as it is, Warwick fired the band, the Rudimentals. He fired myself and Michael and the drummer, and moved on. And then I formed a band called Zizen Radio, which I got a lot of flack about the band, but I had a few Jewish guys helping me in the band, pressing buttons on the drum box and things like that, because it was before MIDI came out.
Oh.
And I had a monophonic synthesizer that I ran onto a sequencer and then trigger it from a Roland drum box, and then something totally different to what you put in comes out. Then we jammed that with guitar and bass and put vocals to that. And most of Joel's were at that stage in the Space Theatre.
Which was in Cape Town?
In Cape Town. All the punk things I did was in Cape Town. I was trying to evolve past punk, but that stuff got stolen out of my car, and that was the end of that band. But with Housewife's Choice, we wanted to be a working band. Our first gig that we booked was playing every weekend at a place called the Navigator's Den, which the punks like, the hardcore punks, because they were going there to dance with the sailors and the prostitutes and stuff like that. So I still got some songs where it refers back to that time, quite humorous stuff, funny stuff about that time. And then we moved on to 1886, which was a dead gay club. It had like beds in it, but they weren't doing any business. So we went in to say, we'll take the door, you take the booze, give us a cut on the booze. And we started 1886, which was in Long Street, as a venue, as Housewife's Choice. And then we started inviting other bands to play with us there and so on. But then the DJs took over, and there was a huge amount of wonderful stuff, you know, Talking Heads had just come out, and B-52s and all those. So we were pushed a little bit aside by getting gigs at a club that we started, because we were competing with DJs, and the DJs did pull bigger crowds than the bands. We had to work very hard with bands and take a PA system there every time and get 2 or 3 bands to play to get a crowd. So we couldn't really compete with that. And then, I mean, having 2 kids, I was like something like 22, 23, and I had 2 kids. I came back to Cape Town. I started doing things like selling biltong to the post office on account, because I got a 30-day account, and with the cash I used to buy something called penny polony. I wrote a song recently about penny polony. I was told it's totally irrelevant, and then the polony thing broke.
Fucking lovely.
But I used to go and buy penny polonies from the non-kosher side of the pork side of a kosher abattoir, a butchery, wholesaler, where the meat for the biltong came from the kosher side, you know. Anyway, so I was selling penny polonies in the street, and I was having a hard time. And I came back to Joburg. By then I had a combi, and I having been on the road with biltong a lot as well, I'd gotten to buy a lot of stuff from storerooms and cupboards from the shops that I was doing business with.
Yes.
And old sunglasses and white and black lipsticks from the 50s that had gone off the market but was starting out as a trend again. So I started selling these things and buying at the Market Theatre market.
Okay.
On Saturdays. But then my bus full of stock got stolen there as well. So that was the end of that. Then Robert Weineck asked me to get involved. They were doing a place called Gallant House, which was like an art warehouse in downtown Joburg, under the Harrow Road Bridge. And they asked me I took a floor on my own, which I started with music. And there we started. Alan Queller was a friend from the 60s that I met through Colin Shamley. And I gave him a place to live, and some Rastas, some places to live. And they were playing there, and Robert and them, they got me the African Jazz Pioneers and just Sharptown Swingsters to come and play there. But that place got closed down. It was actually a setup by government agents that closed the place down. And then I moved to a place called, I called it Pool Club, because there was a room full of pool tables, about 20 pool tables, and another room the same size with a stage. And I rented a PA and I went in there. And it was on top of King of Clubs, and I was actually using their liquor license.
Oh.
But only getting a small commission from the booze, and sharing the door with the band. So people think I did a lot of, and I had Sharptown Singsters, and Obed and Gubeni played there. Winston Jive Mix-Up was like my resident band. The Carols played there.
Oh, the Carols, okay.
Yeah, and
With Gary.
With Gary, and I don't remember that much because, you know, I was mixing a lot of drugs with alcohol all the time. So, you know, I don't have memories. But I ended up by default doing the Eerste Afrikaanse Rock Festival there as well.
Okay.
And then, I had an argument with the Portuguese, and I moved out and I went to another place called Chango's. But the owner got shot. Nick the Greek got shot in Hillbrow, and that place, he bought it from the Wheel brothers, from the boxing family. And Nick got shot. He leased it to Mr. Pete from Zambia.
You mentioned Shamli, Lebanese.
Yeah, his father was Lebanese, but he was a folk singer in the old days. He
Okay,
was,
because my aunt married a Shamley in Port Elizabeth.
well, his family is from Port Elizabeth.
Well, he's probably family of mine.
yeah,
They had all the hotels in PE.
Colin was one of the big songwriting folk singers in those days.
Okay,
He's still
because
alive.
my aunt
and,
Denise married Reg Shamley. They had a son called Dan. He's dead now, but they owned all the hotels in PE.
I didn't really
PE
know.
family, yeah.
Colin used to go and visit his mother in PE. That I know. He's still alive, and he was at the time of Mike Dickman and Eddie Nederlander, and I'm talking
Oh, geez, I
in the
remember Eddie
60s.
well, I don't remember, but I know
the
of.
60s, there was first the Troubadour, which was downtown, and then later on there was Dinty's Night Beat.
It must have been really hard back then to
which
be a
is-
musician singing English to basically a national party government where everybody was listening
Well, I
to
could hardly
Sonja Harold en volgens Karika Kirstenkamp.
Well, I was still learning to speak English. I actually learned to speak English from my kids because, I grew up totally Afrikaans. But, if you speak Afrikaans, immediately the people think of you as
You're
an
a boerewonder.
informer. I once, I had a trip. One of my first acid trips with a guy, I think his name was Jacques Duprea, and afterwards he said, "I'm never tripping again with you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "You go on hairyback trips." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You were speaking Afrikaans." Anyway, I thought I was too out there and too.
And the next time you took acid, did you actually tell yourself, ek moet nie Afrikaans praat nie, ek moet nie Afrikaans praat nie?
I can't remember what I thought. I took so many caps of acid.
Have you
I
lost
don't know.
lots of friends to drugs along the way?
Yeah, I have, but I never moved. I never had peers. I had no peer group. I didn't keep in touch with anybody from school.
Yeah.
I didn't have any friends from army,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any friends from university. So I always saw myself as being rather peerless.
Okay. Yeah, well, peerless is good. It's good, yeah.
You
And
know,
you're still,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still the back door man. I still prefer my own back door to my front door because it's a habit from the times from the army when the army was looking for me. You never
You know,
used
the
your
back,
front door.
okay, back door actually just refers to the fact that you might like getting...
No, I'm not talking about other people's back doors. I'm talking about my own back door. My own back door.
Your own back door.
I use my own back door. I don't go to other people's back doors.
Letterlijk, nie figuurlik nie.
Okay. This sounds like a Nando's ad. Now.
What if you could sell to Nando's? You'd make a fortune. This is that. You say, Viva Nando's.
Anyway, at the time, recording was still reel to reel. I didn't take part in the Safari Suits recording with the other bands, but it was reel to reel and it was inexpensive, and I didn't see myself having any chance of breaking into the mainstream
Like
of any kind of music.
Like with Force's Favourites.
No, there was no. I mean, Housewife's Choice Combi caught a light on the way back from the Hermanus Freedom Farm party. And while it was burning, the Delians were coming past with a convoy of vehicles. And we were so embarrassed, we told them to fuck off. We said, we can't be seen with you. We're punks. You know?
Can kind of your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, well, we
But
were
also
young.
standing
We
up
were
for-
young and arrogant, and we were punks, and we didn't want to have anything to do with anybody
Mainstream or acceptable, yeah.
acceptable, anything acceptable. And, anarchy has got to the stage now where you mention anarchy, people are scared of anarchy as like 10, 20 years ago, if you mentioned atheism, people would say, I had somebody say to me, but you're a Satanist. And I said, no, I said, I'm not religious. Satanism is actually a low form of Christian religion.
Yeah, you cannot... An atheist means, well, we don't believe in
Well,
God or Satan.
What is theos? Theos is the Greek for the gods. So it means that I don't study theology, for fuck's sake. That's all it means. It's the only thing it means. I don't study theology. I don't see it as an exact history to study. As simple as that, And I don't compare that to science and try and find this and that and the other. I don't care. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm an anarchist. But people misunderstand anarchy, and they misunderstand chaos as well, because a lot of people say anarchy will never happen and it's got no chance. But, you know, there are little groups of pockets of people who will develop anarchic societies through the need for that to happen, because the world is fucked.
Yes.
Capitalism is fucked.
Communism
never was.
Yeah, no, as a concept, yeah.
Communism, Marxism never happened.
Yeah.
You know, socialism, well, that's also got hijacked by capitalism. So, you know, anarchy is a thing. And what is anarchy? Anarchy is actually give and take in the sensible proportions. And that's all it is. It's all it is, and that will develop through the need in small pockets. Whether it will survive, whether it will become anything, because I mean, you can't suddenly open a school of anarchy or the church of anarchy, or you know, it's something that people either feel or they don't. And you know, I also think that to compare intellect with, what do you call this thing? People who study, they
Academics.
are academics.
Yes.
To say that you need academia to have an intellect.
Bullshit.
That's crap.
False it is.
And to me, all education coming from a Broederbond home, and my father wasn't high up in the Broederbond, he was middle management, so you know, the image was very important to him more than anything else, and his image at the church and all that. So to me, all education was indoctrination, and it stayed like that. So I rejected education. I'm not saying that's the way people should. I'm not saying there's no value in education. There's huge value in education. Of course there is. I'm not saying that's the way to be, but that's who I am. That just happens to be who I am. And to me, anarchy works from the gut feel. You know, and I believe you can think with your gastric juices. That's very close to the heart.
You can think with your gastric juices.
Anyway, to cut a long story short, a lot of people say to me I've done a lot for music, because from there I moved to Harbour Cafe and
That's in Cape Town.
No, Harbour Cafe in Joburg. It was
okay.
called the Yeovil Yacht Club, which I see that
That's bizarre.
that is that. Yes, of course, it's like the flying.
bizarre.
It's like the flying ostrich, but. I see that the Radium has now got an Orange Grove Yacht Club upstairs.
Oh.
Yeah, but I never called it the Oval Yacht Club, but the people who didn't like me called it the Horror, and the people who liked it called it the Oval Yacht Club. It's like a bit like we would call a Muse Cafe a Booze Cafe now. Well, it was like actually a joke. But people thought that I ran these clubs. I mean, Tananas were a very loyal band there at the Harbour Cafe. Koos Kombuis did a gig there. And then there were rumors going around that I'm an informer for the security police. And there was
because of your Afrikaans? Because of
no, there was a hostile takeover happening.
Oh.
People there were boycotts organized against me, and there were a lot of rumors. But I was also a cunt. I was headbutting people. You know, if somebody came in with his own bottle, I say, "Can I keep this till you go away?" And he says, "You don't have a liquor license," and I'll give him a smack. And if he says, "I'll call the cops," I'd headbutt him. And if he says, I'm gonna make a case of assault against you," I'd headbutt him again and say, "Do you want to make it GBH?" You know. So yes, I was an arsehole, and I got a lot to apologize for. I really got a lot to apologize for.
But you're not going to
But
apologize.
I will apologize, but I don't think anybody will listen, because to apologize, you don't expect forgiveness.
No.
An apology is an apology. It's not asking for forgiveness.
You know what? As long as you know there are things you want to apologize for, you don't actually necessarily have to go and apologize.
The best apology is a change of behavior.
Yes. And your behavior is not going to change.
It has. I'm trying not to be a cunt.
You try not to headbutt people. There we have it. He's trying not to be a cunt. He's adopting some hippie fucking love machine shit.
Anyway, so people think I did all this and I played in the music because of my passion for music. It was all I could do. That's all I could do. It was the only way I could vaguely make a living besides...
Selling biltong.
Yeah, and a bit of drugs and
a bit of drugs.
But it was all I could do. So when Seds came to play at the Harbour Cafe, I gave him a regular gig there during the week because I couldn't really afford to pay him much. So
you said that JP heard Seds play at one of your venues.
JP used to come there, but he didn't know who Seds was.
Other way round. Seds heard JP play.
Where?
Chango's.
Oh, did you play at Chango's? Yeah, that's the place. Okay. Chango's was a very short time. That's where...
the man was high most of the time. He can't remember.
That's a place I got from Nick the Greek. And Nick the Greek got assassinated in Rocky Street. Then
Why did he get assassinated?
He got whacked.
Why?
At the door of a club. There was shit going. I don't know what shit was going down exactly. What happened? Dylan's was across the road. This was at the Speakeasy. Dylan's was across the road, and old Scarface Julio's father fired a 38 into the air just after Nick got shot to death, and he got arrested. When they did the ballistics, it wasn't the same caliber. So, and then they never found out what exactly happened with Nick the Greek. But then I moved out of that place, and I got a chance to run a place in Rocky Street. There's a long story to be told there that I'll still document and what happened up till... And that became the Tandoor, which is still there.
Okay.
Anyway, people think that I was running all these things because of my passion for other musicians. I didn't give a shit who they were. I needed to make a living. I had kids to feed and I had a drug habit to feed, Then after I lost everything at the Harbour Cafe, I thought, I'm getting away. I'm getting away from drugs. I don't want to know any of my friends or acquaintances. And I went for about 25 years, lived next to the Kruger Park, and I was selling properties and holiday homes and timeshare and shit like that. Not the point system timeshare, decent stuff that I actually didn't feel guilty about selling. But and then through I ended up buying property in Mozambique that I wanted to develop, and I had a restaurant and 2 guest houses in Komatipoort, and things were looking up. But then through some deaths and through some unfortunate things and overextending my money, I once again lost everything and came back to Joburg. Got an opportunity to run the Bohemian.
Okay.
But the guys who'd taken over the Bohemian from the original guys, I don't want to talk too much about it, but I walked out there and they closed. And so right now, all I got again is I came to Joburg with my scooter, my coffee plunger.
You have to have a coffee plunger.
And a couple of guitars and an amp, and that's what I came here with. And so that's all I can do again is I have to make a comeback into music, but I'm from a standing start. Okay. So it's not easy. There's no momentum. There's nothing like that. My songs are silly. I'm writing a lot of new stuff.
Well, life is silly.
Yeah, I'm writing silly songs again, and I'm trying to find people to collaborate with, and so that's what's happening, and I'll probably that's probably what I'm gonna have to do till I die. Is play music, or until I get too stiff to play music, in which case I'll just go back onto drugs.
It's been absolutely great talking to you. Ons gaan weer praat.
Punk Alt Delete was recorded and produced by Leon Erasmus at the Digital Fanatics studio in Morningside. Valerie Katz conducted the interview. Punk Alt Delete. Music composed by J.P. Myers and performed by the Psychotics. Punk Alt Delete. For more information, check out our website www.digitalfanatics.co.za.